What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's the post-match pint here at Malone's in Glasgow, as always. After Aberdeen won, Celtic won at Hampden. Aberdeen won 4-3 in a penalty shootout. I've got Kenny here with me. Kenny, it's a tough one. It's not the end of the season we wanted to be sitting here after another treble, having a beer and celebrating, but wasn't to be today. It was Aberdeen's day. How do you sum up your emotions after that?
I mean, look, it's a really sore one. Can't remember the last time we lost the Scottish Cup final. It's unusual for us to be exiting a season with a low point. I mean, we've scored, 17 goals or something against Aberdeen this season. I think coming into that probably affected their game plan. They realised that if they come in and they play with a relatively open shape, they're just going to get picked off. So they come in and for the off, they just played a low block. Their tactics were to try and frustrate us and try and snuff us out. They offered absolutely nothing going forward. And that's fine because we face that a lot in a regular domestic game. But what that means is your offensive players have got to take some responsibility. They're going to have a lot of safe possession. They're not going to be under pressure, under a counter press. They're facing a low block. And we didn't take responsibility. Particularly in the absence of Hatate with Engels and Bernardo. Too many bailout passes. Not being prepared to be brave enough to try and play a killer ball, not being prepared to be brave enough to take a man on, dumping the ball out wide, and it was just, when we look at our wingers, Kuhn, I think it was the wrong selection. Based on merit, it should have been Forrest. That might seem an easy thing to say in hindsight, but the consensus amongst the fans that I spoke to before the game was James has earned his mark. So I think that was a mistake by Brendan Rodgers. Kuhn was poor. And then on the other side, I think it was just a game too many for Dyson. He just looked like fatigue had finally caught up with him at the wrong point. So when our central midfielders aren't taking responsibility, when our wingers aren't firing, and Adam Ida has just been unreliable this season. And he scored 20 goals. He scored some reasonably important goals. But the Adam Ida of last season, away at Kilmarnock, when you're fizzing the ball into his feet and he's turning men and he's playing well with the ball with his back to goal and he's playing like a proper number 9, all of that has been vacant all season. It was vacant today. So when you throw all that together in an offensive sense, we created nothing. Their goalkeeper through the entire game had no saves. We got a goal, sort of scrappy goal from a set piece. It seemed like that was the only way we were sort of likely to score. But you were thinking in the second half then, in a leading position, taking the sting out of the fact that we're trying to break down a low block to get the opener, that we would have moved with a bit more freedom and played with a bit more aggression, but we didn't. It was a repeat of that horseshoe-style passive play that was getting us into trouble. And okay, we had a couple of injuries today in Rio and Jota, but when you look at the bench and what we brought on to try and disrupt it, to try and change things, it didn't make any difference. And I think you probably learn when you sit back now, our squad isn't quite as deep as we perhaps thought, because in big moments like that, when you're relying on your squad to come in and disrupt and get a big game like that over the line, it just never happens. So you're always vulnerable to something happening late on and the game getting away from you. I don't think the subs in extra time helped either. Bernardo, I get, wasn't having a great game, but he's a good carrier of the ball when people's legs get tired. Replacing him for Taylor, effectively in behind Johnny Kenny, it was just too alien a system. I know that was only for 20 minutes, but it was a crucial 20 minutes, and I think that just killed all sort of momentum. At that point, it was like a game of basketball, and if anything, we lacked control. They were the ones that missed the major chances. So overall, the outcome of the game was poorer. I think if you take a further step back and think, is that a shock that we put in an outing like that? It's probably not. We've not really performed at the right level since the Bayern Munich loss. And that Bayern Munich loss was at the start of February. We're now at the end of May. It's too long a time to be playing in a way that has been too passive and too unreliable. I think that Champions League campaign galvanised everyone in a way where there was a real hunger to play with invention, a real hunger to stay in the team, to play in that big event. And once that dropped, combination of that dropping and the league already really being won, I think they've lost a bit of focus. That focus should have been brought back into the side in the build-up to this game, but it's not been. You saw it against St Mirren, a really weak, lazy outing. The only time we've had a bit of hunger was away to Aberdeen when we played the B team. It was full of freshness and full of people that were trying to get in the side. So a big anti-climax today, there's no doubt. We can really have no complaints in terms of the result. We didn't pepper the goal. And I think there's just a lot of food for thought actually now going into pre-season.
Aye, I want to go back to the Aberdeen game plan today. The first time I've ever sat in the upper tier at Hampden, so I had a really good view of the game, and you could tell from minute one they were going to sit in that 5-3-2 shape, 5 at the back. Every time we got the ball wide, they were going really, really tight to the wide players, restricting the space, not allowing us to cross the ball. But as you say, that's fine early in the game where you think we're keeping possession. If we're probing and we're trying to find the pockets of space, and there was probably only once or twice in the first half where we knitted together a really nice move at any pace. There was a lot of corners in the game because, like I say, Aberdeen were tight to us in the wide areas. They were blocking the ball out for corner kicks. We got the breakthrough. It was an own goal from an Engels corner. It looked like Carter Vickers had maybe poked it goalwards. I think it was an Aberdeen own goal. And then after that, you were just looking for us to settle down and maintain the dominance, but also try and get that second goal that would just have killed the game, that would have took the wind out of Aberdeen sails, because, as you say, they've lost a ton of goals to us this season. I think that 5-1 game where they played against a much changed Celtic team was probably like rock bottom for them, and it probably started a sort of inquest as in tactically how they're going to set up in this cup final. And that worked for them today. They came away with the trophy, but from our point of view, we got too safe too early. We just didn't create anything at all. We'll come to the second half in a minute. When the game goes 1-1, Dyson has the big chance to win the game, but aside for that, Mitov wasn't really tested at all in the Aberdeen goal, and I felt like whenever we did get the ball wide and we had time to cross it, the end product was also really poor.
Yeah, and we were hesitant to put the ball into the box. We've got a bit of height in the box with Ida. Today, you needed to be brave. It needed a hero. It needed someone like a Bernardo or an Engels to say, right, I'm going to give myself a shot. I can be a hero here. I'm going to take on an extra man to try and break the lines. I'm going to try and beat. I don't care if the crowd bay down my neck because I play a forward ball and it misses its target. I'm going to try and play it. I'm going to feed someone in with a killer pass. And nobody had that bravery. They did not have that gumption. Callum McGregor will always play with that level of intensity, but he's a number 6. He's got 4 or 5 men in front of him. He needs them to try and break down the low block. Our centre backs as well in that situation can stick. If you've got, I don't think we get enough. Our centre backs don't step enough into the offensive side of the game, and it doesn't help us when we're trying to suffocate teams in that type of situation. I think we'll maybe talk about next season, but I think centre half recruitment is crucial for us next season. But I think just a passiveness right from the back, right through to the front, caused us problems, and Adam Ida's right at the pivot of that. And I just don't see enough from him, Paul. I don't think his positional play as a number 9 has been strong enough this season. I don't know if he gets confused. He's coming too deep at times. When he's up there playing in the central area, he's not holding the ball in enough like a Chris Sutton or a Hartson would in that intelligent way to lay people off. He's a nice finisher and he's got attributes. He can do all those things I've just described, but he's not doing them in a consistent way. You can just sense from his body language that he looks uncomfortable. And we mismanaged that striker situation in January.
Big time.
We must have known Kyogo didn't go overnight. There must have been some idea that he was going to leave. And we got good money for him for his age with £10 million, and we couldn't recycle that in time because we weren't organised enough. We're trying to get linked with people like Danny Ings with a few hours to go in the winter. It's not good enough. And it's cost us today because we finished the game today. No disrespect to Johnny Kenny, it's not his fault, but we finished the game today with someone who we've signed from the League of Ireland to get a treble over the line. And I think that's been a big part of the failing as well. So we were just no cohesion, no chemistry going forward today, and recruitment's going to be big in an offensive sense. It needs to be next season. We miss Rio, right? All of those things that we missed today is where Rio can hit home. He will play the killer ball. He does have that invention and that class that today could have picked him open. He might not have done. He's not entirely reliable himself, but he was in great form. That injury's haunted us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I hope you can hear us in here because the noise is incredible. The mics are earning their money today. It's difficult to really single out individuals and really heavily criticise performances today. There's no getting away from it that collectively and individually we were poor today. It wasn't a good enough performance to go and win the game, to go and win the trophy. And I think if you go back to January, there was the trainer thought at the time that there was maybe a bit of an overreaction because everything was fine when we didn't replace Kyogo, but I think we've seen it in numerous games. Dyson's had an incredible season, and at first when he moved through there, everything he touched was turned to gold. Every shot, it seemed like every chance he got, it was going in. that's dried up now as he's got fatigued. Again, I think since he went to Japan a few weeks back, he just hasn't really looked the same player. It's at the end of a long season. We know he's not a robot. He's been absolutely incredible. But that lack of options up front, you've talked about Ida and some of his shortcomings this season. We just don't have that depth, and we don't have that other option there. And when you see the team that finishes the game today, I'm going to come to the subs in a minute, but the team that finishes the game today is like cobbled together. We've got Taylor in midfield, Schloop's out there, we've got Yang, McCowan, Johnny Kenny up front. It was thrown together, and if you look at that 11, you really wouldn't expect it to start any game for Celtic, let alone be enough to get us over the line in a big cup final. A big point in the game, Kenny, I think a big moment that a lot of people are talking about is the subs in the game. There was a triple sub made around 65 minutes. Kuhn, Engels and Ida went off, and Yang, Forrest and McCowan came on. Now at that time in the game, there's two ways of looking at it. I thought Bernardo might be the player to come off. He hasn't played a lot of football. I actually thought today in the first half he was pretty good, Paulo Bernardo, but he went to bits in the second half. I thought he really tired, and I get that it's easy for us to sit here in hindsight and say that, well, we should have kept Engels on and took Bernardo off, but was it because Engels has played more minutes than Bernardo that he was the one that made way, or is it because Bernardo's not got the sharpness and the minutes in his legs? Because it's his error really that leads to the Aberdeen goal. Obviously Schmeichel will come back to in a minute, but he kept giving the ball away with slow pedestrian sideways passes, and it cost us really.
I think if we review Engels' season, right? I mean, when Engels went off, were you shocked? Were you thinking, God, why is he taking off for 11 million? Why is he taking off a record signing? You weren't really, because Bernardo at 3 million, you could argue is as strong a performer as him. And I think it's sort of symptomatic of his season. He's not had a bad season, Arnie Engels, right? His numbers are okay. He's young. He's not a 28-year-old seasoned player that we expect to come in and, hit the ground running necessarily. So one season perhaps to bed in, maybe it's been a bit harsh on him, but you've got to review it relative to your investment and relative to what's happened today and what you saw as an overall output. And on balance, I think it's been a bit underwhelming. I think he's a regular 6, 7 out of 10, but he's not that often a 9 out of 10. We've not done that many post-match pints where we've got Arnie Engels all over the tagline saying, let's talk about Arnie, right? He's got great talent, he strikes the ball cleanly, his dead balls are good, he can play these raking passes from deep, all of that is there, but it's got to be accompanied, I think, with a bit more fight, a bit more desire and a bit more ability to shove people off the ball, demand possession and start to look dominant in games. And he's not been dominant in anywhere near enough games. He's been good technically but not dominant. I think that's why he was taken off today. So they miss Rio. There's no doubt that if Hatate was in there instead of either of those, it would have been a different type of game, because he picks the ball up in the pockets. He does look for them clever balls over the top that neither of them can really play with regularity. So that was a big reason, I think, why we ultimately led to defeat, was lack of invention ahead of Callum McGregor, and it's just caught up with us.
I mentioned the Bernardo mistake in terms of the square ball in the lead up to the Aberdeen goal. There was also a shout from the crowd that the ball went out. I don't think it did. From where I was sitting, the ball was still in play with Gay on the left hand side for Aberdeen. Comes back over the right hand side, Shane Morris. He whips a low ball into the box, and as far as I could tell, that it was just going to clear the box. It was going to go through the back post. Didn't look like anybody was there to turn it in, but Kasper Schmeichel tries to deal with it. He goes low. I don't know. He finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place, because if he parries it, it could just be out into danger area, but if he lets it run and somebody's at the back post for a tap in, people might say, listen, the goalkeeper should have dealt with that. He gets it all wrong. He basically punches it into the net. It's another own goal. Aberdeen scored an own goal, so did we. And that gave Aberdeen huge belief, and it actually gave them the momentum in the game as well. I think today, there's a load of intangible things today. I think one of them is the crowd. I think the Aberdeen crowd were right up for it. I think you could tell that's the crowd of a team who haven't won the Scottish Cup for 30 odd years, whatever it might be. Every time they went over the halfway line, there was an incredible noise. They were right behind their team, and that goal really shifted the momentum, and from our point of view, it felt really self-inflicted.
Yeah, I mean, that was the moment that gave them the cup, because until that point, although that was deep in the game, I actually thought they would open up earlier than that. I mean, they were a goal down. I thought they'll maybe get to 70, they'll be happy to be in the game, and then they'll open up. They hadn't even opened up really at that point. They were just, I don't really know what their strategy was for the last 10 minutes, but bar that mad moment, it was going to result in a Celtic victory. Should we vilify Schmeichel for that?
It's a brilliant season.
Schmeichel has been injured for quite a while. In goal is no different to an outfielder. If anything, you're even more vulnerable, because if you lack a bit of sharpness in the middle of the park because you're not match fit, you might misplace a pass and get away with it. If you lack a bit of sharpness in goal, it can crucify everyone. And he's been out for a number of weeks. He came back. He played against St Mirren. Played maybe one game before. That's not really enough for someone of his age to be fully match fit. And that was just a mistake that he'll feel awful about, and it was just a moment. I don't think that should mar our view of Casper this season. I don't think that should necessarily mar our view that going into next season that he should be the number one. Everyone was delighted when he signed on for another year. That was just a moment. However, he's 39 in November. Will we see more moments like that as he ages and perhaps picks up more injury? That's possible. So there is a vulnerability there next season there. And that's but since Salo's handled himself sort of okay, but that moment changed everything. The psychology of the whole game changed. If anything, they could have went on and won the game in normal time. Even getting into the second half, into the injury time, we were in a bit of a spin. You could just sense it, whereas they just had belief, and all of that belief and oxygen came from that moment. So a difficult one to take, given it was someone who's been so reliable for his whole campaign.
I mentioned it already, but the big chance in the game for us to win it was Dyson's chance through on goal. He actually does really well to get there, shows great pace, gets there ahead of the defender. It's similar in many ways to the chance that he had at Ibrox in the dying embers of the game. And I think it's a good save from Mitov. Again, you're looking for your striker to score it. You can't criticise Dyson this season, but it's a big opportunity. That was the game. It felt like on a plate for us, particularly given that we created so little all afternoon.
Almost feel sorry for Dyson. I mean, he's like a boxer on the canvas, right? He's just punched himself out. He's given so much in every game, and we sit here and eulogise over his ability to press and run for 96 minutes every week. But he is a human being, and you could just sense that it was a game too far for him today. And when he was right through the middle there, that was the moment, wasn't it? Clearly he should have lifted it a bit higher or chose a corner, and he's not quite got there. But I just almost, he could barely run to hit his penalty.
We'll come back to the penalties in a minute, but he was absolutely out on his feet. Going into extra time, Kenny, we've talked about how the goal gave Aberdeen the momentum and energy in the game. I really felt that we lacked energy in extra time. I thought a lot of the players, even some of the players that came off the bench, I think Yang today, his output was abysmal really, like really, really poor on the day, but just in terms of his desire and his energy, he's just come off the bench. There was a moment where we had a penalty shout in extra time, and the balls came back out the box, and at the time I didn't think it was a Stonewall penalty. I haven't seen it back, it wasn't given, didn't look like there was much in it. But he's just stopped, the ball's still in play, he's got 10 yards on the Aberdeen defender, and he just starts walking. It just seemed like across the pitch we lacked energy, and we almost lacked, I don't want to say belief, because obviously the belief of this squad's been incredible, but it did look like we had almost surrendered the momentum in the game in extra time. It didn't look, there was nobody in the pitch where you thought, do you know what, he looks determined that he's not going to be in the losing side here.
No, and their heads went into a spin. I think it was as much psychological as it was physical. And the hallmark of one of Brendan Rodgers' philosophies is stay calm, just remain calm, irrespective of what happens in the park. Play with a calmness, and they didn't. That mentality, that mindset had gone, and it got too much for them. I mean, Yang was diabolical when he came on. Yang has just been so frustrating because he's actually come into a bit of form lately. I mean, there was that sort of joke about his girlfriends here, and it settled him down, and that seemed to be the case. But if we think about Jota's going to be missing until January, February next season, can you rely on Yang to be the one that comes in and be a sort of deputy to that role? I think today more or less confirms that he can't be. So investment out wide is probably necessary in light of Jota's injury, but he was particularly weak, Yang. It really didn't help us in any way.
Aye, absolutely. Aberdeen had chances to win it as well. It would be remiss of us not to mention them. I think, is it Daba that smashes it over the bar from the corner, nodded down. inside 18-yard box smashed over the bar. I think they had another chance as
Hit
well.
the bar.
Could it be through Gay as well?
Yeah.
They did have chances to win it. Like I say, they were the team that had the more energy and extra time. And Kenny, I'm trying to be magnanimous because you can lose a football match at any time. You can lose a cup final at any time. We have become accustomed to winning them every time we've rocked up at Hampden, especially under Brendan Rodgers. We have come out on the winning side, but these things can happen, and I felt if you look back, we've had a load of cup finals in this brilliant period we've had where we've scored unbelievable last minute winners, like the last time we faced Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final, that moment with Tom Rogic. We beat Rangers in a penalty shootout in the League Cup final only a matter of months ago. We've had these cup finals which are close, edgy, cagey games where we've come out on top and we've found the big moment, be it late in the game or be it through a break. And today it wasn't to be for us, and I think going into that penalty shootout, I did have the feeling in the back of my mind that, I mean, historically in my lifetime I remember penalty shootouts being a nightmare for Celtic, but I don't think we've lost one since 2016. And again, these things are meaningless and intangible, but you did just have that feeling that it wasn't going to be our day.
Yeah, I think you do just have to be grown up about it and accept that we have, in 99% of times in the last 5-10 years, come out on the winning side in marginal games, and a lot of that is to do with psychology and the mind and mentality. It's not just luck. However, there is a bit of luck, right? I mean, even when we played Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup semi-final and Joe Hart is stepping up and missing penalties, we still somehow won. You go back to when Frimpong gets sent off against Rangers and we're just hanging on by the skin of our teeth, we somehow get the win. But you're only ever a good shot away or a red card or something for that going wrong. So I think you just need to accept that today was just a game too far. I try and tell my young son that it's not always going to be like this. We're not always going to be guaranteed to win trebles and win every week and win game after game. I think you have to have a sense of perspective at the end of a match like that. And look back in the season and treat this season. If someone offered you and I at the start of the season a double Champions League phase qualification and taking one of the giants in Europe to the last minute of a knockout match, you're taking it all day long. You'd have taken it all day long, and that's what we've achieved. The fact that we had a poor outing today should not mar 1 year's worth of work and success. But it's hard to go home and think about that tonight. You know, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
I'll come back to the perspective that this puts on the season in a minute, but I do want to talk about that penalty shootout in a bit more detail. Technically, I think the Aberdeen penalties were very good. We just talked about Casper and his injury. I think most of the Aberdeen penalties went to that side where he had the problem with his shoulder. I believe it was his right shoulder. I have to say that the Aberdeen penalties were impeccable, really. A few really, really well-taken penalties, high into the roof of the net, in the top corner, difficult to save, and it's a lottery. It's a lottery for us. The captain steps up, misses the first one. And again, even you talk about Dyson's penalty where he looked so out on his feet, he just short run up and just sort of smashed it straight at the keeper. He just couldn't keep it out. And then, I suppose, when AJ goes up, you're just looking for him to give Casper another chance to save it and keep us alive in the tie, but wasn't it to be?
Yeah, I mean, there are lotteries. We've won a disproportionate amount of them in recent times. But you can't keep winning the lottery, right? The law of averages means you're going to lose. I just in my head felt that the law of averages would work against us when McGregor goes up. Initially, you do have a degree of confidence with Cam because he's been over the course so often. It's always good to put the first one home, and that puts the pressure on them. So I can understand why he was selected to take the first one. It was a weak penalty, the classic weak penalty, not in the corner, not high enough. Keeper can make it's basically if the keeper guesses the right way, he stops it. So that was poor. Their penalties were like Roy the Rovers, right, top corner. You know, it's hard to get too caught up in the analysis of penalty kicks. AJ was a bit tired. Maeda's looked sort of lucky to go in. It was just one of those moments where I think the momentum of the way the match finished and the fact that their tails were up and their minds were positive and our minds were negative manifested itself in the way the penalty kick played out.
Aye, absolutely. Let's talk about the perspective then that this puts on the season, Kenny. It's obviously a sickener to end the season like this, losing a big game like that, being denied the treble, but where do you stand on the outcome of the season? It's so difficult really to gauge it because emotionally for 2/3 of it we were brilliant, we were very good. You talked about the progress in Europe, the way we started the season like a house on fire, but it really does feel like we've dropped off this last third of the season. I think we do have a big job in terms of recruitment in the summer. I think there's huge question marks about the recruitment under Brendan Rodgers. Not even going back to the first spell, but if you look at the players that we currently hang our hats on, are any of them Rodgers signings from coming back to the club? Probably not. Most of them are players that he inherited. We've talked about the striker situation, the situation out wide as well with Jota's injury. Centre half, which we haven't talked about in any great detail today. And again, difficult to criticise individuals after a good season where we've won the double, but we still find ourselves struggling on with Liam Scales at centre half when we've spent 5 million on Trusty, 4.5 million on Nawrocki, 3.5 million on Lagerbielka, and we're still struggling on with Liam Scales at centre half. There's big question marks in recruitment in the summer. How do you view that in the summer, and how do you view the conclusion of the season and the season overall?
I mean the recruitment, it's not been good enough. We spent £30 million on 4 players, right? It's quite a big investment for Celtic. Today, when it really mattered, 3 of them get hooked, 1 of them never made the starting 11. That's only 1 game, right? But it's sort of a reflection of where that 30 million's gone. It's not been squandered, but we've not had the return for that level of investment this season, and that's got to change next season. You can do that once. You can't do that 2 or 3 times, because you regress to a point whereby you start needing to rebuild, and you can really lose what we do have as a stranglehold in the domestic game. What I'd like to see us do in the summer window, it's fine spending a lot of money, but our net spend in the last 2 or 3 years has been nil. We've spent a lot of money, but it's been funded by Matt O'Reilly. It's been funded by the sale of Jota. If we sell Daiz Maeda in the summer and spend 25 million elsewhere, that's fine, but we've lost our talisman. Net spend generally means you stand still, net spend. I would like to think with the Champions League money that we've got, with the big, healthy bank balance that we already had ahead of the Champions League, and with hopefully a level of renewed ambition, given we made a mark in the Champions League, we'll actually go and spend, not of a net spend but an actual negative net spend of maybe 20-30 million pounds, and that will truly stretch us on. So that's the onus is on the board in the summer. We also have a big
qualifier to navigate in the summer.
Yeah, terrifying prospect. But perspective on the season, look, let's try and divorce ourselves from the emotion of today. If I'd have sat here at the start of August with you and said, Paul, the outcome of the season is we win the league again, we beat Rangers in a cup final, we win a double, we qualify from the Champions League table, and we take one of the giants of Europe to the final minute in their own patch in the knockouts, you'd have bit your hands off for that. The big takeaway from this season is restoring some credibility in Europe, and that has happened. So despite the sort of mediocre outcome from the investment, we've achieved all of that. And Brendan Rodgers, we've got to learn from today. The one thing, and I'm sure he will, we've got to learn that you should always learn in your failings, and he will take that into next season to give them more hunger. I think if we won today, having played poorly and we won another treble, there's a possibility we'd have been complacent going into next season. I think that's eliminated now. That hunger's got to go back into the campaign next season, because it's delicate. All we saw it today is, although we've won all these trebles in recent years, you're only half an hour of bad performance away from losing a game, and you lose a game, you lose a treble. So it's delicate. It's just testament to how brilliantly we've done to actually not let that happen in recent years. So look, we just need to put our hands up, say that we didn't deserve it today, and try and regroup in the summer with positive sort of moves in the transfer market, and just really use this as a learning tool to go in and dominate again next season domestically.
Yeah, and I want to, I suppose, maybe not end on this, but what is your gut feeling about the manager's future in terms of, is he going to stay beyond 3 years? We know he's going to be here next season. He's told us that he's blue in the face. Do you have a gut feeling will he'll extend beyond that? And do you think if he doesn't, as we go through next season, it might become a bit of a sideshow?
Well, I mean, I hadn't even thought about it becoming a sideshow. It's possible, though. Would I like him to? Yes. I mean, I think today's result diminishes Brendan Rodgers' managerial quality for the level of manager that we can fish in. I would absolutely love it. If he could sign another 2 years right today, I'd bite your hand off for it. Will he do it? None of us know. He's hard to read, Brendan Rodgers, as we know, based on his behaviours when he left the club and came back. All of that was unpredictable. I don't think he will. And on balance, I think for him to have done 6 years as Celtic manager, for somewhat, you know, there is a bit of repetition to what you're faced with when you're a Celtic manager, right? You're playing one team domestically. To do that 7-8 years, it's, you know, history tells you people don't really hang around to do that. So I'm not sure he will. But let's not think negatively. 18 months down the line, we've got him next season. He'll be giving his all next season. He will be even hungrier than he would have been at the start of this game to right today's wrong next season. And that's a bad sign for our opponents. If we get into next season even hungrier off the back of pain today, then that's a good sign for us going into next season. And it maybe puts a little bit more of a rocket to the board to say, do you know what? We can't just sell our best player, recycle the money in 4 or 5 and go again. That doesn't necessarily work. It puts a wee bit of thought in their mind about, let's actually stretch our legs. Let's put our foot down financially and let's push on again. And that may well happen.
Yeah, let's hope we do that. Let's hope we do push on again next season. Not the way we wanted to finish. Personally, I just want to thank everybody for their support this season. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. We're getting very close to 45,000. Thank you for all the comments, everybody who comes up to me at games in the pub, comments on social media, supports us. Thank you so much. Not the party that we wanted to end with. But that is it from Malone's Bar on another Celtic season, on a double winning Celtic season. Wherever you are, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.